Hi there, it's Canaday of Vo2max Productions here with an answer session. Basically, Sandy and I just got back from 1% for the Planet. I'm not sure if you'd seen my button. 1% for the Planet meeting here in Boulder with local companies that are part of 1% for the Planet. Oh, my light just went out. Basically, we, through our company Sage Running, which you guys help support, a lot of you guys, we donate 1%, at least 1% of all sales to a charity that helps out the environment. So that's kind of the idea behind that. Without further ado though, let's get right into the training talk questions, you guys. I got a lot of Twitter submissions. I got my phone out, so I'm on the Twitter. Thanks for all those that asked me questions. I haven't even looked at them yet, but I'm gonna look at them right now and try to answer them as fast as possible so we could get through this video here. But yeah, if it's a question again that I've already covered, check out, subscribe, check out the playlist, the Training Talk playlist on the YouTube channel here. Thanks for all those that followed on Twitter, got on Twitter, tweeted at me. We're gonna go right into it right now. Strength training and conditioning routine 2 times a week to supplement marathon training. Any ideas? Thanks for the question there, Sam. I think strength training, I've covered this in other talks, I know, but my first thing is injury prevention. If you have injury, if you have a weak area, it's a good way to compensate for that weakness. So yes, strength training has a value. Usually running more is going to help you run better, but if it's running more means getting injured, then you need to address that weakness or issue, and doing strength exercises, extra, stretching drills or something is definitely a good way to do it. So yes, 2 to 3 times a week, special drills. Maybe it's not spending 20 or 30 minutes or an hour or two in the gym. It means maybe just doing 10 minutes of exercise every other day. That could really make a big difference. So yeah, that's my answer for that. What's the single most important change in training when graduating from 50K trail races to 50 miles? That's by Chris Messerschmidt. Great question. Like I've always said, actually, I think it's not necessarily the distance in these ultra races that really matters. It's the vertical profile. So, a rugged mountainous 50K might take as long as a tame 50-mile trail race. So in a nutshell, there's really not that much of a difference. If anything, higher mileage and extending your long run definitely helps, but training for the course train is the most important variable. So, again, getting in those long runs on course specific terrain is going to be your biggest thing, and getting in some elevation gain, hill repeats, long runs with hills in them, that's really your answer. Next question. I got Achilles Tendonitis last week. When can I stop using RICE therapy? That's rest, ice, compression, elevation, acronym, RICE therapy, and start running again. I'm not a doctor. It's a disclaimer. Achilles tendonitis is a very tricky one, and that usually you want to be very careful with. There's a lot of factors that go into recovery. So I'm going to stop using RICE therapy. It depends on the severity of the tendonitis. I can't evaluate it just based on that. Definitely want to be really conservative with it. Eventually doing calf raises usually helps in the long run, as well as light stretching of the calf, but it's a person by person issue. That one's a little too sensitive to comment on. Achilles tendonitis, though, definitely be careful with that one. Same thing with plantar fasciitis. Those could get really bad really fast, so it's better to be more conservative. As with any injury, stress reaction, pain, severe shin splints, or pain in your, especially in the shin, the tibia, that usually leads to stress reactions, which quickly could go into a stress fracture, and that means months out. So definitely be careful with injuries. Sage, what's your favorite workout? Uphill tempo run, I'd say. Let's see. You play the guitar. That's not really a running related question, but I like this guy, Isaac. Will you ever make an app that will just have beats per minute like a metronome? There's probably already an app out there. I know a lot of when we do talk about cadence, running cadence, how many steps you take in a minute, there are apps, digital metronomes that you could get that'll click, or even uploading music that goes to a certain, 170 beats per minute. Is a good way to try to sync your steps to if you're trying to improve your stride rate. So I'm not in that development business right now. Got a lot on my plate. Let's see, you already strength training 3 times a week. How should my taper look leading up to my goal race? Lift or don't lift? Gosh, if you're strength training 3 times a week, that's quite a bit. I don't know how long that's for. I don't know what muscle groups there are. There's a big difference between lifting, focusing on your upper body versus lower body, lifting or doing both, or focusing on core. I wouldn't totally back off from it if that's what you're used to. You could definitely taper it though, where you cut your lifting in half. So, if you're lifting 20 minutes at the gym, only do 10 minutes. If you're doing, don't strain yourself trying to do higher weights or more reps. Do less reps. Just keep that muscle tension there. So it's more about maintenance rather than totally cutting something out or trying to, increase it in the last 2 weeks because you're tapering. So definitely, you could lighten the load, so to speak. This guy asked a bunch of questions in a row. Is running at a constant slow speed a bad thing? Well, it depends how slow. My philosophy is on a true recover day, you can't go too slow. Most runners go too fast. So feel free to get out there and, walk if you have to. I don't think it's bad. I don't believe in junk miles, so to speak. Does running on a synthetic track have ill effects on the body? Yeah, it can. It's a great surface, but the turn will mess you up. It can mess up your hip flexors. So, I wouldn't do it every day, and I would change direction if I could after a short while. Let's see. This guy asked me if beer has a bad effect on my running capacity. Not the amount that I drink, I don't think. I usually drink 1 or 2 Averys a night. I haven't experienced any ill effects. I probably drank more in college, so my running wasn't horrible. You definitely don't want to overindulge in anything diet nutrition wise, so moderation and variety is really the key. But I don't think one or 2 alcoholic drinks a night, if you're at least 140, 150 pounds, which I am, is going to have any ill effects on your training or athletic performance. Did you get your hip issue, tight hips? Oh, hips. So this question's on best stretches, exercises for hip strengthening drills. Sandy did a great video on that. I'll try to link to that there if I remember. But check out Sandy's channel, Running Wild to Believe. She did a great hip exercises video, as well as other strength training, flexibility videos. What are your favorite tools for running? Race prediction calculator, GPS map tools. Just Strava, using my GPS, uploading the runs on Strava. It's my training log, it's where I analyze things. I like the mile splits, I like the heart rate data. Strava as an app, Strava as the website, social media platform for runners and endurance athletes, cyclists. It's great. How's the OTQ training coming along? Will you try 4 years from now? I'd like to keep the streak going for OTQ, Olympic trials qualifying, because I've done the last 2 Olympic trials. I want to qualify for my 3rd one in 2016, and I'd like to keep going for 2020 if I can. If they lower the standard, it's going to be really hard, because they've lowered it every year, but I've been able to sneak it under. So I'm just trying to get it in the next couple months before I focus. In 4 years, I'll probably try again too, but between then, I could definitely do ultras more, because I don't have to marathon as much. It makes it easier. If you are coaching a fast twitch based athlete that wants ambitious marathon, it's the best way to approach training. Gosh, unless you get a muscle biopsy, it's hard to say you're fast twitched. There's definitely sprinters that move up to marathon distances, and people that are better at running the mile than running an ultra marathon maybe. But I believe you could extend endurance really well, and a lot of that doesn't change too much. I think usually people that are better like sprinters are coming from like a sprinting background or a explosive type of sport background. Usually you're a little more prone to injury, so you have to be careful with the mileage increases and careful with the intensity and duration of the long runs versus a slow twitch athlete that's come from an endurance background that might, really have a knack for doing long runs and have better running economy and not get injured as much because there's a durability issue. So just be careful with the long runs, be careful building your mileage up slowly, take your easy days really easy, make sure you're not running too fast in your easy days, and then do a lot of lactate threshold work as speed work, a lot of high-end aerobic work basically. I could get really into that, but I gotta get through these questions here. Mental aspect of running, I've covered that in a YouTube video, a couple mental training videos, so I'll just leave that one there. This one's by Scott. How many warm-up races should I do before Boston, and when should I stop racing? Starting Boston marathon training on January 1st. You don't have to do any. It helps, I think, with our like I did LA before Boston this year and it worked pretty well. It was a little risky. I'd recommend probably, you know, doing half marathons and moving into the marathons is usually a good bet. If you have an ultra, you definitely want recovery time after your ultra before you do a marathon buildup, but depends on your background in running for a lot of people. Starting January 1st for an April marathon like Boston gives you plenty of time to get into things if you've already been running for several years and you have that aerobic base. So it's really a personal thing. So yeah, I guess the answer, you don't really have to do any races, but doing some half marathons and shorter distance races before moving into the longer stuff is always good, as well as if you're coming down from like a 50K or 50 mile ultra and then, you know, taking a break and then starting up marathon training is always a good idea. And so you should have plenty of time from January 1st. How much time do you devote to core strength workouts and how do you factor them into your weekly routine? Not enough time to core strength. I mentioned it in some videos. Again, Sandy has great videos on core strength routines. I probably do like 5 or 10 minutes every day pretty much after a run. And mainly it's light stretching and then like some sit-ups, and that's pretty much it. But I in college I lifted weights a lot. I did pull-ups, I believe, you know, planks are always good. Anything to strengthen the core, free weights, did some free weights as well, but the core is really key, and the hip mobility, hip flexibility, lower back, that type of area, your abs, is very key. So I should probably work more on it, getting into that. Power hiking versus running uphill. I always run if I can. Will this pay off long term? Depends on the distance of the race. If you're doing a 100-mile ultra, it's sometimes good to power hike on an early climb because you want to pace yourself for later on. Whereas if it's a, you know, 10K cross country race, you got to blast up hills and you got to run them if you can. So it depends on the duration of the race, really. I think learning to run climbs that really push you on your edge is really good. That's what I do like at Speed Goat. But then learning to power hike fast is also another skill that's good to practice for the longer ultras. So if you're doing an ultra with a lot of climbing and it's going to be a long day out there, or if it's a technical trail, definitely the power hiking is probably going to be more efficient for you. And you don't want to cross your aerobic threshold, I guess, either. You don't want to be producing lactic acid in an ultra unless it's the very end, or you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be burning through your carbs really fast. How much time do you recommend between races, considering time to rest, build up, and taper for the next race? Really an individual, personalized question. I mean, for most people, it's going to be a really bad idea. If you run a marathon, your recovery time, your legs are going to be shot for at least 2 weeks, theoretically. You've got a high risk of injury. You don't have full muscle strength. You're going to be pretty tired if you ran a hard marathon on pavement. If you ran a hard half marathon on pavement, at least a week. And it's more of an injury risk more than anything else, and it's more of a, you know, endocrine system type of thing. You don't want to overstress yourself if you don't have to. So, you know, the smart thing is to take, we used to say, a day off for every mile you race. So marathon would be 26 days, 10K would be 6 days, 5K would be 3 days. It's not an exact formula, but it's kind of a rough thing. Of course, you could race back-to-back ultras. People do it all the time, but I wouldn't recommend it. What is your take on back-to-back long runs? I've done a video on that. How long after a run do you wear compression for recovery? I did it yesterday. I did a workout, so I put on my Compress Sport compression socks, and I had them on probably for about 5 or 6 hours. I've had them on for, you know, 10 hours on plane flights before. Then I'll take them off when I go to bed at night or something. What's your thought on running, everyday running or exercising for non-pro athletes? The more running you can do, generally the better, as long as you don't get hurt or overtrain. So for most people, they don't have the time maybe to run 7 days a week like I do, or, you know, 7 or 10 times a week like I do. So I run twice a day a lot of days, but non-impact aerobic exercise is always good. You know, mixing it up with swimming and cycling or something like that. You're definitely getting good aerobic benefits, because the heart and lungs don't know what you're doing. They don't know the difference if their pulse is the same, pulse is the same. Muscles are worked a little differently, but the main thing is you're not having that impact force on your joints and bones and tendons. So yeah, I'd say the more is the better. If you have time to exercise every day a little bit, then you can, for sure, but variety is key. Let's see. Bad idea to try to PR and tune up. And PR or tune-up race only 2 weeks away from your A race. Depends on the distances. I think you could definitely, depending on how good your PRs are. I mean, I've run a 10K like 2 weeks before a marathon, and it's worked really well. But usually, if I'm in really good marathon shape, I'm not in the best 10K shape 2 weeks out. So it's a risk to try to PR every time. Yeah, it's a little bit of a risk, but sometimes you could surprise yourself. And if it's running a 10K before a marathon, you definitely could PR. You might be in the best shape of your life, so that wouldn't be bad. Half marathon 2 weeks out from a marathon is a little more risky, just because of the distance. How exactly do you find the best phase for running at a certain distance? I think you meant to say best pace. You gotta learn pacing, experience, basically heart rate experience, experience from doing hard workouts, interval training, but also from prior races. Until you've run your first 10K or you've run a 5K, it's going to be hard to know relative paces, and this would be on a flat course in perfect conditions. So other than that, you're going to have to go by your breathing and heart rate and subjective feeling. Definitely most people probably, if they're new to running 10K, they probably start too fast the first mile and then slow down in the middle and maybe kick at the end. It's good to try to focus on even pace, which means a slight increase in effort as you progress along. 10K, you're really hanging out there around 4 miles. So good luck with that. Let's see. I think that might be it for questions now. This last question, it looks like, came in pretty recently. What's the best way to know when to retire your running shoes? Are there any signs specifically, or just a standard 300 to 500 miles? Well, depends on the running shoes. They're not all created equal. It depends on what surface you're running on. Generally, we say about 300 miles, especially 300 miles of pavement running. Usually, a lot of people will be like, they'll look at the upper of the shoe and they'll be like, oh, I got a hole here, or this, is becoming delaminated, it's falling apart, or my laces are frayed, or something like that. But the most important thing really is inside the midsole, inside the bottom of the shoe, the cushioning, whether or not that cushioning shot versus superficial things on looking at the shoe's outer surface. Of course, if you run on trails and the traction, the lugs get worn out on the bottom, you're not getting good traction. That's kind of annoying just because of the slippage factor, but really the cushioning inside the midsoles is what the shoe's going to start feeling real flat. And you notice it because if you get a new pair of the same shoes, they feel totally different. It feels like you're running on clouds again. So yeah, general rule of thumb, 300 miles. It's going to vary. People have gotten 800 miles out of a pair of Hokas before. But it's good to have a couple pairs of shoes to rotate constantly anyway, to give the EVA time to recover if you run like every day or twice a day. So that's always good to have different dates, different ages on your shoes and different mileage figures. But yeah, that's it for, I hope I didn't skip anyone's question. I was kind of just going through there on my phone. And it was a great idea to do the Q&A. Thanks for whoever suggested that. I want to do maybe some live Q&A as well, and people could put in the comments and it could be on here streaming. Don't know how to do that yet. I'll figure it out. But thanks again for participating. Feel free to comment below with future training talk topics. I'll keep up with the in-depth training talk topics because I really like those. I have no idea how long this video is. It's probably really long. It's pretty late here at night. But thanks for watching, and follow me on Twitter if you obviously follow me on Twitter if you ask a question. Instagram at Sage Canaday. On Facebook, Sage Canaday fan page. Don't send me a Facebook message. I get too many of those. Can't respond to all of them. And yeah, subscribe to this channel if you like it. Be sure to share it on social media. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate all the views and all the thumbs up and votes and comments and likes. So thank you again, and stay tuned for more Vo2max Productions.